PFT PM. Yesterday, Shireen Williams and I looked at the NFC teams that both have gotten work done during the offseason so far, and then NFC teams that still have work to do. Myles and I are going to look at the AFC teams first that have taken care of business so far this offseason. And I see your picks, and I am stunned. I am flabbergasted by your first selection. I would have never guessed it.
You never at all? Yeah, I can only wonder why you wouldn't have. But no, I think that the Browns have done a really good job this offseason of taking care of what they've needed to take care of. They needed to improve their defense. They've gone out, they signed somebody in John Johnson, who I thought was definitely one of the top defensive free agents available. And it's partially because he's coming off of his first contract. He's not somebody really that the Rams would want to get rid of. It's just that, you know, when you're paying somebody like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and then you decide that you want to pay Leonard Floyd too, you can't afford everybody under the salary cap, especially in a depressed year like this one. So he goes to Cleveland, and I think he's a really good fit for what Cleveland wants to do in the secondary. Really good cerebral player. And they also signed somebody like Troy Hill, also used to be on the Los Angeles Rams. I think that's a good fit opposite Denzel Ward. Now, the one thing I think that they still can do is improve their pass rush, and they've done some of that maybe by signing Takk McKinley. I don't know how much you can really count on him going into the 2021 season. Same thing almost with Jadeveon Clowney, and of course got reported yesterday and was on the transaction wire that he visited with the Browns as well. But I just think from the standpoint of taking care of your needs by supplementing guys, and you're not necessarily counting on them to be the guys, because the guys on defense in Cleveland are Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett. I think they've supplemented them very well, and so that's why I think the Browns have had a great offseason.
By the way, Shireen has texted. She has requested clarification. She is only 3 months older than me, so point
That was a drive-by.
taken,
I'm glad she's
Shireen.
Yeah, good. Because that was just very wrong the way you did that on the way to break.
It was on the way to break, and I can't be held responsible for anything I say on the way to break because they're counting me while I'm talking, so words come out of my mouth that I can't quite control. So sorry, Shireen, who is only 3 months older than me. I agree with you on the Browns. I was intrigued by the Jadeveon Clowney visit. Who knows where that's going to go? I think Clowney, if healthy, can be an incredibly dominant force, and I think it's easy to get seduced by watching his film of when he's healthy and forget that you're not going to see that Jadeveon Clowney very often if he's on your team. I got to go with the Patriots just because I'm fascinated by the fact that they have broken so dramatically from character. When owner Robert Kraft tells Peter King, we used to laugh at the teams that spent in free agency. And we're aware of that. They are very self-aware that they are finally doing the thing that they always made fun of. It's like, hey, we made fun of the guy who got a perm, and now we went out and got a perm. And that's okay because we got a reason for going out and getting a perm. But they do have a reason. Their roster stinks, and they willed that team to 7-9. And they've gone out, and they've bought, and they've bought, and they've bought. Now, I like what they've done because I think they were very strategic about what they offered. I think they did a lot of work before the negotiating window opened. Surprise, surprise. Teams violate that standard all the time. And I think that they made it clear to the agents for the players that they signed, this is what it's going to be. And if you don't take it, I don't know what else you're going to get. You know what else is out there. We know what else is out there. You better take what we're offering or you're going to be screwed. And it worked. They lined up guy after guy after guy after guy. They've addressed weaknesses on both sides of the ball. And I think it makes the AFC East a fascinating division this year because the Patriots have gotten better. And you rarely say that about the teams that spend aggressively in free agency. But the Patriots have never done it before. They've done it this year, and I think it's going to make them better.
It should definitely make them better. And the other thing is, I think that they have not put themselves in a situation where they can't improve at quarterback, because I've said this on this program before, and I still really think it, that they're probably going to have to make some other move at QB because of Cam Newton and just the way that he wasn't necessarily as good as you would want him to be as a thrower last year. So I'll go to my second team, and that would be the Chargers. I love what the Chargers have done so far in free agency. And really, it comes down almost just one player. That's signing Corey Linsley. And I think that that is a terrific signing because, to me, there's almost nothing more that or better that you can do for a young quarterback than to give him a veteran center who really knows what he's doing. Because when you're a quarterback, there's so much that you have to pay attention to at the line of scrimmage. You have to make all these different calls. You have to know what the protections are. If a veteran center can take some of that off of the QB, then that makes it so much easier for the QB to know what's going on in front of him and then make the reads beyond what's in front of him to those wide receivers and those tight ends and running backs too. They're also in the eligibles. So I love that signing. I think it's terrific, and I think that it sets up the Chargers very well. And also, even though they lost Hunter Henry, they brought in a guy like Jared Cook, and he was down in New Orleans with now offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, so he has the advantage of being familiar with what that offensive scheme is probably going to be. I think that the Chargers should be able to continue Justin Herbert's good progression, and because of what they've done in free agency, Mike.
The biggest thing the Chargers need to do is figure out why it is they have so many guys who get injured. I think at some point it's not just bad luck. It is training, it's stretching, it's nutrition, it's something. And if Brandon Staley, the new head coach, can get that figured out and keep this team healthy, they can be very, very competitive. The other AFC team for me, I'm conflicted on this, as we've established. I'm conflicted on many things. The Jaguars, I think, may have spent recklessly and foolishly and maybe not responsibly. But you know what? When you're so bad and you've got the money, you may as well, because it's not like you're going to get worse. And Trevor Lawrence is on the way. So they genuinely believe that these guys that they're adding are going to be better. And Urban Meyer has his built-in excuse that he didn't get a chance to do his proper due diligence. He complained last week about the free agency process in the NFL. So if these guys stink, he can say, hey, I didn't get a chance to vet them the way I would have. But they did rely heavily on relationships that their assistant coaches have with the players that they brought in, and they're hopeful that they've made good moves. But when you've got one of the worst teams in the NFL, it can't get much worse. And I got to give the Jaguars credit for being aggressive to try to turn around a team that has made as dramatic a fall as I can remember a team making, from being an AFC finalist and having that game won against the New England Patriots to basically collapsing into a heap of nothing to the point where they've earned the number 1 overall pick. They've never had, in all these years, the first overall pick in the draft. Now they have, Miles.
Well, the other thing, I mean, I think of another team that was, also really good in the Houston Texans, and they're pretty darn close to making that same sort of dramatic fall, up 24-0 on the Chiefs in the divisional round last year. But I think that it's really interesting when you look at all the moves that they've made, and you have to think of them with Trevor Lawrence in mind. And is Trevor Lawrence going to be able to get the most out of somebody like a Marvin Jones? We're not really too sure yet, but I think that they at least have set themselves up to have a chance. And actually, before this segment ends, Mike, there's something you said when you were talking about the Patriots that I want to circle back to. Did you have a perm at one point? Because it sounded like you were talking from experience.
Did I do what now?
Did you have a perm?
Oh, no. I thought you asked me if I had a pun. No, I never had a perm.
You sure?
I'm so old, I forgot that I even mentioned the word perm. No, there is no visual evidence anywhere. Trust me. Mullet, yes. Perm, no. I own the mullet. I deny ever having a perm. Vehemently, aggressively, shouting from the rooftops, I never had, nor will I ever have. I don't care how stylish it becomes. They could pass a law that is required that every human being have a perm. I would shave my head and say my hair fell out. All right, let's take a break. The AFC teams that need to do more in the 2021 offseason. Perm-free edition of PFT PM returns right after this. All right, we talked about AFC teams that have taken care of business in the offseason that we are still smack dab in the middle of. AFC teams now that still have more work to do. Miles, you're up first as usual.
All right, well, I'm going to have to say the Ravens, and I think it's because of what they have failed to do so far at wide receiver. It's interesting. I mean, Eric DeCosta talked about this before the start of free agency, that he wasn't necessarily concerned about being able to attract free agent receivers to a team that was not only 32nd in passing yards, but 32nd in passing attempts. So it's not like they were really trying to throw the ball all that much. And when you have such a good running offense, you probably don't need to. But when you are trying to get a top guy, or at least somebody who can help your passing attack, it might not behoove you to have the kind of offense and the kind of offensive scheme that they've had in the last couple of years. So it seems like right now they've struck out on Juju Smith-Schuster. They definitely struck out on T.Y. Hilton. He confirmed that earlier today on the Pat McAfee show. So what are they really going to be able to do to improve at wide receiver? It almost seems like they're going to have to draft somebody. I mean, Sammy Watkins visited with them. He left without a deal. And I like some of the things that the Ravens have done this offseason for sure. I like the Zeitler signing. I think that fits well with what they want to do in terms of running the ball. Derek Wolfe coming back, Bowser coming back, Pernell McPhee coming back. All that's good too. But until you actually address wide receiver position, or maybe you even could go out and sign another tight end because that might fit a little bit better. I don't know exactly what they're going to do to make that offense as good as it needs to be in order to really evolve it. Because right now, everybody knows that it's hard for them to throw the ball, and they don't even want to do it. So if they don't have a wide receiver and they don't get that top guy, it's going to be tough for them next year, I think.
I believe that the Ravens are trying their damnedest to talk their way away from the idea that the team isn't attractive to free agent receivers. The reality is it's not attractive to free agent receivers. That's not an indictment of Lamar Jackson. It's an indictment of the offense. The way the offense is constructed, you're not going to have the ball thrown your way. And if we know anything about receivers, it is they want the ball to be thrown their way. They want to show what they can do. They like catching passes. They don't like blocking. They don't like running routes and being decoys. They like having the football thrown in their direction so they can make things happen. And if you have choices, if you give me the choice between team that will throw me the football and team that won't throw me the football, I'm more likely to go to the team that will. It's that simple. Right? First one for me is the Chiefs. And I understand they're the ones who chose to move on from Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. We saw what happened without those two in the Super Bowl. The problem is, what have they really done to replace them? Joe Thuney is not a tackle. He's going to be playing guard unless they move into a position that maybe he's not comfortable playing. They tried to get Trent Williams, and they failed. They tried to get Juju Smith-Schuster, and they failed. They tried to get Josh Reynolds, and they failed. And you've got Patrick Mahomes directly involved in these efforts. Now, maybe it's more persuasive once the money has flowed and once it's no longer about I'll get more money somewhere else. But to the extent that the Chiefs thought they were going to convince people to take less to come join the Kansas City bandwagon, hasn't worked. And I think that it's a cause for concern. And is some of the shine off of the Kansas City Chiefs organization after the loss in the Super Bowl? I don't know. I'm just alarmed by the fact that this is a team that has been trying to go out and make itself better, and it has failed to do so. And they may be fine. They may be back in the Super Bowl this year. They may win it again. But they definitely still have work to do as they try to improve their offensive line, put Patrick Mahomes in a better position to not have to run for his life, and address other deficiencies on the team, especially with Sammy Watkins, a free agent, and possibly headed somewhere else.
If they were able to sign Trent Williams, I think we would probably feel dramatically different. But as you just said, they failed to do it. So when you do fail to acquire that big left tackle that you know you need, especially after the way you just got rid of Eric Fisher, then yeah, I think it is some cause for concern, because Patrick Mahomes is definitely going to need somebody to block for him, at least if they are even to try to make it back to another Super Bowl. I'm going to change the rules of the game, because you usually do this all the time. And it's not necessarily just teams that have more work to do. It's kind of like, what are they doing? I'm going to go with the Raiders, because what exactly are they doing? And I feel this way with the signing of Kenyon Drake for as much guaranteed money as he got. I feel this way with not just trading Rodney Hudson. That you know, sometimes things happen with veterans and you want to move on. But when you then sign Andre James to a contract extension when he's only started one game for you in 2019 and he's going to be a restricted free agent next year, I'm just not really understanding what the logic is there. I know that you want to get better on the offensive line, or at least get cheaper, and you feel like, you know, Andre James is not that much of a drop-off, but you probably don't have enough evidence that he's actually going to go out there and be the kind of quality player that you want him to be. And then they signed Martin from the Texans, and then it's been reported that there's going to be some sort of competition there between those two guys for center. What's going on? So I don't really know what what's going on there? I mean, John Brown should be a decent signing, especially for what they're paying him, but I also almost think that he's a little bit very similar to Henry Ruggs. And if you really want to get Henry Ruggs to where he should be as, the 13th overall pick in the draft last year, and what exactly are the roles going to be, there's a lot that the Raiders still have to figure out. So I guess it's still, they have work to do, but it's also what's going on there, Mike?
Well, and when you look at the offensive line, 60% turnover there, and there's this vague argument that John Gruden has a plan. He knows what he's doing. Well, I assume he's had a plan the last 3 years. How's that worked out? Look, this is a guy who has not faced any real scrutiny for the fact that he has been a mediocre at best coach since winning the Super Bowl 18 years ago, and his return to coaching for the past 3 years has been a failure if the ultimate pass-fail is, are you a playoff team? And even with 7 teams per conference, he couldn't get in. And if he doesn't make it this year, I don't know when Mark Davis holds him accountable. Mark Davis may just be happy that John Gruden is the head coach regardless of what the team does. Davis is used to having a bad team. You can either have a bad team that isn't coached by John Gruden, or you can have a bad team that is coached by John Gruden. He'll take that every day of the week. But I remember when Gruden signed the 10-year, $100 million contract, everybody thought it was fully guaranteed, and everybody's like, wow, this is unreal. My understanding is it's backloaded, and a lot of the stuff on the back end isn't guaranteed. We'll see as we get closer and closer to maybe that aspect of the deal, whether or not there is real accountability for John Gruden. And my point is, if it was anybody else, any other circumstance, you'd at least be on the hot seat going into this year. And maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We'll find out. I think the Jets have more work to do, primarily because this quarterback question has not been answered. And they will answer it. They will do the work. They will check the box. They just need to get it right. Are they going to keep Sam Darnold? Corey Davis seemed to think that, although why are they going to tell their strategy to Corey Davis, a guy who just signed with the team, and let him blab during a press conference? But they need to get this right at quarterback. This isn't just they need a quarterback. They need to know who it is. They need to get it right. They need to evaluate the guys who are going to be available with the 2nd overall pick, and they better get it right. Is Zach Wilson as good as Chris Sims thinks? The Jets need to make that decision. They better get it right. They better get their other decisions right with the draft picks they have. The draft pick they picked up from Seattle for Jamal Adams. They got to start hitting on these picks. They got to continue to build that team from the inside out. And they got to hope they can be competitive, because look at that division they're in now. It's not quite the NFC West, not quite the AFC North, but the Bills are great. The Patriots are the Patriots. The Dolphins are better. The Jets could be left in the dust if they don't make some good decisions over the balance of the offseason, Myles.
Yeah, they absolutely could be left in the dust. And so that's why I think whether it's Zach Wilson or somebody else, whoever they figure out is the solution at QB, they, like you just said, they better get it right, and they better be gung-ho, and everybody's got to be pulling in the same direction for it.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break. Gives us some time to answer some of your questions. Looks like some good ones have made it through Twitter today. We'll answer those.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.